Hello, I'm so excited to come back to you today with my very dear client, Iman. I'm so excited because she will actually share with you how she moved from attracting emotionally unavailable men who eventually made her even feel like not even worthy of a phone call to attracting her dream man that she's now, by the way, engaged to, and who she feels obviously safe and secure with. And she feels like she can be anything who she wants to be. So super excited to have you here, Iman.
Thank you. Excited to be here.
Oh, like I'm really excited to talk about this journey with you. And yeah, so what we're going to learn today is actually how fast things can move when you have the right tools, when you have the right strategies, and you also have the coachability to implement those strategies, right? So Iman, like I was just talking about, you were attracting emotionally unavailable men, all these things. Like, tell us a little bit more, like what was happening in your dating life before you found me?
Exactly what you stated. Emotionally unavailable men, like repetitive patterns of just pretty much dating the same person in a different body over and over again for 4 years. Yeah.
Wow. And you're not alone. I'm sure so many women can relate to that, right? That like, oh, the next time you think this guy, this time it's going to be different. And this guy, he's going to follow through. And after doing this rigmarole, I call it, for like so many years, like how did that make you feel, Iman, when you just went like from one emotionally unavailable guy to the other, thinking something is going to be different?
I just felt like that this would never end and my goals wouldn't be accomplished of getting married and having children. So that's, I felt like there wasn't going to be an end to it.
Yeah. And you also mentioned, right, like that you even were thinking about, well, it's better to be alone than like to go for another relationship.
Yeah. I thought that because at least I love and respect myself enough to know not to deal with, the behaviors of the men that I was dating. So I figured that would be a better route than just having to put up with behavior that made me feel worse than being by myself.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's like a good thing, right? Like you started with yourself. And tell us, of course, I gave already a little bit of a hint in the beginning, but what does your love life look now?
It's fabulous. That I have like a best friend and very good sex partner and everything that I could want in a person. It's like a teammate and have the same morals and outlooks and it's just wonderful.
Oh, that's amazing. And I also love, like, let's talk a little bit about how you actually met him, right? Because you guys have like somewhat of a more uniquer like story. So can you tell us a little bit more about that, Iman?
Sure, yeah. So we went to high school together, but he is a couple of years older than I am. And we did have like the same friend group, which is it's funny now because we'll all hang out and they tease me that I look exactly the same in high school, but none of them do, which is funny. But for a long time, I think about like a year or two, Kyle was constantly messaging me on Instagram. And I guess it appeared that I was like single because I was dating these emotionally unavailable men that I wouldn't post, them on there. But I kind of just didn't answer him because I just didn't think it was, going to go anywhere. And then, I think there was a breaking point for me when I was dating this person. And I broke it off with him. And then just like, I kind of was sad for 2 days about it. And then I said, you know what? I'm just going to go for this. And I messaged Kyle and I said, okay, let's, I'll take you up on the date that you've been asking me for 2 years. And then we had our first date and that's it.
Yeah, sometimes, like what the goal is like right in front of you, right? I always say like the man is already in your proximity, is what we see over and over again, right? And tell us a little bit more, what are some of the main lessons and things that you helped you the most on your journey? Like, like obviously you were part of this program, right? With some of the techniques or principles, beliefs that shifted for you as a consequence of working with me?
From, the main lesson that you taught me was to, reminding myself that I should be more open and like receiving of love. Not that I didn't love myself, but I think just like a overall, like kind of like a wave, like on the shore, it was kind of like eroding the rocks. Like that's how I felt in the relationships. It was kind of like wearing me down, that I didn't think I could deserve to be loved by anyone. Just, having the same circumstances over and over again. So I feel like, there was a story of, well, other people don't know, but you know it.
Yeah.
When I went out for Indian food and, just somebody was checking me out, and I told you about it, and I felt like really uncomfortable because I didn't feel like I looked good, and I had a super long day. But then you reminded me that, women can find the man of their dreams in this sort of situation, and that they would appreciate you no matter what. And I feel like after that moment, like something like a light switch turned on for me, and that's it.
Yeah. Like, how did that make you feel when we went through this work of like, what if like in that moment you're the most available, right? Because you're not in sort of like this presentation mode. You're actually just like doing your thing. You're just like being Iman, right? Like you're actually not paying attention to, oh, I need to show up as this person, or I need to watch this trade. Like, what shifted for you when you realized that?
I mean, me personally, like I have a very, I'm really hard on myself. Like, so it's just not something that I ever thought to think of. I try to be as presentable as possible. Like I would never go outside in leggings or sweatpants, and that's fine for other people, but for me, it's not. Like I feel like almost embarrassed. So I think that needed to happen, just like as a growth, like maybe not even just in terms of relationships, but in life, to becoming better for myself.
Yeah. And have you always been like that, coachable, or did something particular shift for you to become that coachable? To be like, you know what, like I know life pretty well, and obviously you've gotten really far in your own career. But like, what was it for you where you were also like open-minded enough to say like maybe I'm gonna try something different, like even though it's like a little like uncomfortable to say the least,
Yeah, at the beginning, I was super nervous. Like our initial phone call, I was super overwhelmed and scared. Um, and then watching your first video about the resistance, I was like, wow, like I'm doing this to myself. I think when I started your program, it was the new year, and I just said, starting the new year, that I have to do something else. And I had been in therapy for years, like 2.5 years before meeting you. And I have to say, like all the money I spent on therapy and time, your program has surpassed all of that.
Oh, like I'm so
Really,
happy.
I'm gonna cry. Like,
No, I can't cry. I'm not crying, you're crying. No. That's yes, like that's so sweet. And I mean, but that's also the piece for you, right? Like you were actually applying yourself. And I think part of the reasons was, yes, it was the beginning of the year, but I also feel like you were in a place where you were was like more painful than the
yeah.
fear of the unknown. And can you tell us a little bit more about that? What was that like? Like, how did you get to this point where you're like, okay, you know what I mean? Like, it's not going to be easy. Change is never easy. Nobody ever said that change is easy, right? It can be
Yeah.
simple, but it's not easy. And what was it for you that just like was like, no, it's too painful to stay where I'm at. It's more painful than doing something different.
Yeah, I mean, it was just like, I guess the culmination of the holidays, like being alone, like not going, I like to go to church and like family oriented. And it was just, being with somebody and then having a holiday alone. It just, in my mind, it made no sense, like why this was happening. And I just decided that I didn't deserve that anymore. And I didn't want to put myself through it, but I didn't know that or have the tools to change. So that's why I came to you, because I could see from, the things on your website and Instagram, like how it's transformed people. So I said, why not?
Yeah, totally. Right. So luckily that's what we have definitely going for us, right? There's so many success stories. And I guess I should ask, what were some of your main concerns or fears that you had before hiring me, right? Before hiring a dating coach, because you're doing therapy, but you're not doing specifically expert love coaching, right? To help with this. Like, how did you overcome those concerns that you had potentially more like internally?
Well, the concerns I had were that I was never going to be married. All of my friends are married and have children. And I'm like I'm younger than them for like a couple of years, but I just didn't think that was going to be my future. And how did I overcome them? Just by doing your program and following your instructions.
Yeah, totally. But you said like there was like a little bit resistance, like in the beginning, right? Like, how did you overcome that resistance? Like right when you were enrolling, when you're saying yes to yourself, when you said, I want to change, right? I wanted to have a different outcome for this year. Like, was there anything particular?
I mean, I think just like the instances, like the emotionally unavailable man that I was talking to, I think it just like the behavior was so off-putting that I didn't really, I just didn't have a choice after that.
Yeah.
From my own relationships, like I'm very family oriented. My family was not happy with like, how I was behaving in that situation. So yeah, I think I had to push myself, I want to be the best I can be. And I don't think it was possible being around that person.
Yeah. And I think also it sounds to me like, Iman, and correct me, of course, if I'm wrong, that you in some way couldn't justify it to yourself anymore, right? You're like, I'm a self-respecting woman, I know I can have, a bunch of men, right? But like, I don't, I allow men to treat me this way. Like, I can't like justify that to myself. Would you say that's an accurate picture?
Sure. Yeah, for sure. Cause it happened, several times, and just, I couldn't do it anymore like that.
Yeah. Well, so now that you're married and you're planning your wedding for the summer, we're like already so excited to see what you wear and all the things, you know what I mean? And the vows and all the things. Like, any final advice that you would recommend to a woman who's like on the fence, right? Who's like kind of flirted with the idea, maybe checked out an Instagram post here or there about hiring me or hiring an expert love coach to help with this?
Yeah, I think if I'm sure they're seeking this because they've been in the same position that I was in, attracting like emotionally unavailable men, or not, or pursuing relationships that aren't as satisfying as they could be. When you find the right person, I think that Antia and Brody, that together, you have a very, from what all the months of the coaching calls, you have a very like role model, like, archetype relationship, that if your goal is to be married and have children, and, that is the model that you want to look after. And, sometimes even if you might have like that special relationship to look up to in your family, it might not be enough because they don't have the tools that Antia has. There's so much information that I learned in your program that, again, in all the years of therapy that I did, I couldn't have asked for more. It's more, the exercises and inputting it into your daily life that is what has the effect. And regular people just don't have access to this information, and you're so accessible.
Yeah,
So
totally. And why not listen to girlfriends? Like, why do you think it's different to get expert love coaching, to get support, rather than saying, you know what, let me just hash it out with my girlfriends. Let me just run some text messages by them. I'm sure they have great advice, even though they may also go from one relationship to the next.
yeah, I mean, it is nice, but I think having you being like a part of like the early beginnings of like even this relationship that I've been in, it's better to have someone like speak to someone who has like the knowledge, rather than thinking that they might have the knowledge, because it's just not the right guidance. And sometimes people don't have like your best interest at heart, whereas I feel you had my best interest at heart, and it was very sincere and genuine, which I really appreciated. Especially about the number of women that were in the program at the same time. Like, I feel, that it was never too much for you. And that attention is just, you can't put a price on that, It's much better than asking a friend, for sure. You're a pro.
And you were showing up, I always say, like, you did the work, and, thank you for sure. And, Iman, obviously, I'm so excited. We already all can't wait for the wedding photos, for follow-up stories and all the things, right? Because you're just sort of like really just like shining star of inspiration. And for the women who feel like, gosh, I want to be the next Iman, you know what I mean? Because we're talking here, she started in January, engaged in March. So if somebody says, well, it's going to take a long time, and that's what I love about your story too. It's like it just went like that,
Okay.
and
yeah.
And would you say maybe also that the work helped you to see, because I always say the brain deletes, right? Like what's already around you. Like, do you feel like it helped you to see this good man who was already around you, who you were just like not giving a chance because your emotional guidance system was slightly off?
Yeah. I mean, at the same time, like, he and I always talk about this because we do feel like we're a very good pair, but he has a very positive like outlook on life. And he said that we just happened to meet at the perfect time. And like all those experiences that we both had shaped us into who we are. So I'm just really thankful to you, God, and that I have like this, I had this opportunity to like open my eyes to just, a very blessed and abundant life.
Oh, yeah. And this is just the beginning, right? Like we're just like, this is just the beginning. We have like crazy follow-up stories from women who've gotten married and then, built incredible empires together with their partner and families and all the things, and leaving a real legacy eventually. And so if you're watching this and you feel like, gosh, I just want to be next, or Iman's journey sounds very similar to mine, and kind of also in this place where I'm kind of sick and tired of being sick and tired, then I invite you to take my free love quiz at getlovequiz.com and fill it out, see where you're at, and let's hop on a call together and see if it makes sense for you to get some expert love coaching from us with like a massive track record of incredible women that we've attended the weddings, officiated the weddings. Not saying you need to, it's not like I'm not dropping it in, Iman, but yeah. So if that's you, getlovequiz.com is your answer. And Iman, thank you so much for being here today, because like, you have no idea. We always get messages after this interview and women are like, oh my God, like when I heard this story, when I heard this, or how they met, or where you were, like, you just never know what you shared that made the difference, where they felt like, what, I'm done. You know what I mean? Like, yes, let's shift something. Any like golden nugget you want to leave the women with, like, of like hope, or like a quote, or like a joke, or an anecdote? anything you want to leave them with before we conclude for today?
I would just say, trust the process. And if you're weary about the whole program, at least have the initial call, because I was really worried myself. And you don't know until you try. So just try it.
Yeah. And then expect the unexpected after that, right? You know what I mean? Oh, awesome, Iman. Well, I could talk to you forever. So we're going to end for today. But I hope this was helpful for you watching this right now, and you take the golden nuggets away from this interview, and hopefully we'll chat as well. Thank you so much, Iman. I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah.
Mwah. Love you.
Love you.